All right, this is the first Tuesday of the month where we do Student of the Month, and we only have 2 tonight, so they're extra special. But would, let's do Emma. Emma, would you like to join me up here, please? We'll stand over here so your parents can see around that chair. How are you tonight?
Good.
Do you mind telling me how old you are and where you go to school?
I go to Ross Montessori, and I'm 6.
And did you have a nice holiday break?
Yes.
Can you tell me something you did? No. Okay. Well, these certificates are for very special students who do great things. So here's what your teachers have to say about you. Emma is a lovely part of our community. She is a positive role model for her peers. Each and every day she shows she cares to classmates and adults. Beautiful. Congratulations, Emma. All right, you can go sit down next to your parents. All right. Elliot? No, Elliot, huh? Yeah, I thought maybe that was Elliot, but he looks a little young. Well, you can go out whenever you like out in the lobby, and Will will take a picture of you. And you might just make it into Sopris. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thank you.
So I understand you had flight also?
I wasn't a flight.
Just a week.
I didn't fly calls, so I don't think
Okay. So you just got the snow. We got a week. Small town.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody knows about your leak. It being 6:02, we'll call the meeting to order. Kathy, will you do roll call?
Heather Henry. Here. Marty Silverstein.
Here.
Luis Ianez.
Here.
Erica Sparhawk.
Here.
Ben Baumfalk.
Here.
Lonnie Kitching.
Here.
Dan Richardson.
Here. Thank you. A big consent agenda. Item A, accounts payable. B, trustee minutes from December 27th work session. C, retail marijuana store renewal application for Rocky Mountain High. D is the medical marijuana dispensary renewal application for the same business. E is the retail marijuana cultivation renewal application. F is the medical marijuana cultivation renewal application. G is resolution number 1, series of 2019, establishing a place to post public notices. H is a recommendation for appointment to the Public Arts Commission. I is the recommendation for appointment to the Bike Pedestrian Trails Commission. J is ordinance number 1, series of 2019, amending the municipal code regarding the Colorado Beer Code, the Colorado Liquor Code, and the Colorado Special Event Liquor Permit Code. And item K, resolution number 2, series of 2019, amending Appendix A, fees of the municipal code. Any questions or anything you'd like removed from the consent agenda?
No. I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Marty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes. Item number 3, persons present not on the agenda. Seeing none. Thank you for being here, though, Lieutenant Wertsmith. So hopefully this means you're free to go. But item number 4, trustee comments. Marty?
First Friday, like almost every January 1st Friday. It was very nice. There were lots of little skaters out at the rink, but otherwise pretty darn empty in town. They opened up the streets at 7 o'clock. We've had this discussion before about why they close the streets in January, since it always seems to be the quietest first Friday. And that, my understanding, what I got was for continuity, so that the streets are closed basically every first Friday. And then based upon the volume of people, in January there are very few people as always. They just open them back up again.
Yeah, we opened it at 7.
Yeah.
But the folks who are working the street also started at 5 in the morning, so that also helped make that decision kind of easy
Right.
to get them off.
There was like no one out there. I mean, there were like maybe 40 adults and kids, by the skating rink, and they were all having a good time and having their, hot dogs and hot chocolate and stuff. I think it served its purpose. That's about all they have. I do want to mention it was very nice. There was recognition of the Postal Service at Christmas time in last week's Sopris Sun, and a letter to the editor that, on behalf of all my coworkers, it was nice to get some recognition that 99% of the people we deal with are very nice and 1% are not so nice. And we try to keep our cool.
How'd you do?
Not as good as other years,
Okay.
but
I mean, keeping you cool.
yeah, that's what I meant. There were moments where I lost it, but I didn't go postal or anything, so, I thought I did a good job.
Okay.
And we do understand the frustration, these days people order stuff online, they track it from the time it leaves a warehouse in Nevada till, oh, here it says it's here. And it is here, but there are also 3,000 other packages there, so we cannot find your one specific package among those 3,000. And they get frustrated.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yep. Thanks, Marty. Anything else? Anybody have anything?
Hey, I met briefly with a lady from our senior community, and it was just to inform me and actually just lay out that there's a grassroots effort being organized within our senior community around us recognizing their specific mobility issues, and this came up from the agenda that was posted for February. So we should probably be prepared to hear a little bit about their safety lighting concerns, snow removal, crosswalk light timing, and those kinds of things. And I think this individual will be reaching out to each of us individually if we have time to meet with her. But just a heads up that that's on the horizon as part of that conversation in February.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done this, but I would encourage you to have her reach out to us in advance just so that we can inform her what we've done and hear her concerns before the meeting so we can just be as productive and efficient as we can be.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Because we did address and look at safety lighting pretty thoroughly a couple years ago. So it'd be good to just at least let her know what we've done in the past. And
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
Great.
I'll just send everybody a summary.
Awesome.
One other thing, Kathy and I met with Joe Scher, who had offered to lend a piece of artwork to the town, and kind of reached an agreement on a spot that's pretty nice, I think, right out here in the hallway. And it's by the picture of the middle schoolers drawing, and also there's a nice thing about what makes a community. And it would fit in very nicely there. And she's working on building a stand for it to make it stable. Okay, so probably by the end of January we should be hearing back from her.
All right.
But that's where that stands.
Thank you, Marty. Anybody else? Ben?
I've attended that vaping task force meeting. You had asked me for an update, and I thought I would just give it now for everybody. So that's the schools, the Roaring Fork School District is sort of spearheading the coordination of people in the different communities in the valley that are concerned about that, which is pretty much everybody. No big news to report from that, but just ongoing progress. I've been in my role with the school district just kind of putting the finishing touches on a training for teachers about just so that teachers are more aware, and then the schools are all working with their prevention specialists, which the schools have a grant for a person whose whole job it is to prevent students from engaging in high-risk behavior, including substance abuse and vaping and related things like that. So we have one of those people at each of the 3 middle schools who serve that whole community, and which is really helpful. And so they're working with Youth Zone and with their SROs to put together kind of a community-specific response to, how we respond to students who've been caught with devices and caught doing it at school and that sort of thing. So that's a work in progress, but I'd say a lot of good work's being done. Gretchen was there as our SRO, and it was a good meeting.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Okay. Final call. Richard, we just went through persons present. Were you going to make comments? Sure. Go for it.
If you want to circle back, you can, but it's just, we'll meet on Monday.
You know the drill. If you'd give us your name and address.
I'm Richard Votero. I live at 75 South 3rd Street in the back. I just moved from the north suburbs. If you're any familiar with the north suburbs, that's over on Wheel Circle. And I'm now on a commercial alley. So this is good. I had experience in Denver with living on a commercial alley. I lived on a commercial alley in Denver that had 60 milk trucks a day come down because there was a yard there for Royal Crest Dairy, and one west side of the street's residential, the east side of the alley, the east side of the alley was commercial. And so I'm used to dealing with traffic. I've appointed myself, and this is something I've been doing for a while, but the idling attendant for commercial vehicles in that alley. So my goal is to have all the regular drivers there come in and know that Carbondale has a 2-minute idling ordinance, and so I'm getting some trucks shut off, which I'm pleased about because I'm right there. And most guys are very cooperative, jump right in, turn it off. Other times it's not quite so, but I keep working on them because the name of their company is on their truck, so they can't resist too strenuously. And I don't talk to people, private parties, about their idling vehicle, since I've encountered some hostility. And so I think, okay, we'll work at it a different way. And that alley, people drive down there fast, not the trucks, but there's cars use that as, we cut through alleys and stuff. Boy, sometimes I see people go by my window and go, wow, where are they going? I didn't see any red lights on that thing. So I don't know if we can do something about that with a alley speed sign, like 10 or something. I don't know. It's not huge, but, there's a lot of people also use that as a pedestrian walkway. So that's just a little piece. And then I'm curious about what took place with the fountains in the park. They were talking about replacing the fountains in Sopris Park.
Drinking fountains?
Drinking fountains, yeah. I meant to come in at the time things were going with budget and that and talk about it. And I did talk to Eric about it, and he sounded as though it was highly possible that they would get replaced. Because I do extra water service at the Mountain Fair, so I'm pretty familiar with those, the fountains. The one on the bathrooms are all fine. It's the one by the pavilion and then on the south side of the park.
Yeah.
And those things are worn out.
Do we have that in the budget this year?
I can't tell you off the top of my head. There's a whole series of parks improvements in there, but I can't.
Yeah.
I seem to remember
tell you.
Eric was talking about a lot of improvements, and that was on his list.
And then with respect to idling, thank you for doing that. I think we have a brochure that maybe if you ask our police, they could print some for you. And if you want to distribute that.
I've been doing good verbally so far. The other thing, I wonder if the town backs me up a little on that. I don't get any confrontations. I do get some pushback and stuff, and I'm just easy on them. I'm just informing them.
Okay.
Most drivers don't know that there's a idling ordinance because a lot of places they go, just leave their trucks run. It's crazy. I would think these companies. And then also I've encountered trucks that the idle turns off automatically after a certain period. So the big companies are onto that stuff, but I'm doing that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And, this is an excellent council.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Did we have Elliot join us?
Yeah, sorry
Okay.
that we're late.
That's okay.
Come up from Glenwood.
That's okay. We're going to take a quick break and do that real quick because it's one of my favorite things to do. Let's just get her done. Hi, Elliot.
Yay, Elliot.
Nice to meet you. Why don't you stand facing your parents?
Yeah.
You can stand right next to them.
Go over next to
You
him.
can stand right here and look right at them. Do you mind telling everybody what grade you're in and what school you go to?
Where do you go to school?
Ross Montessori.
Ross Montessori. Okay, and what grade?
Kindergarten.
All right, all right. Tell me something. Did you pick out that tie or did your mom or dad? I like that tie. Can you tell me something that you do for fun outside of school? You play soccer, you ski?
I go to the movie theater.
Go to the movie theater, all right. That sounds like fun. So these certificates are for special students whose teachers think very highly of them. So congratulations for being awarded this. This is what your teachers have to say about you. Elliot is a kind and compassionate in the Bobcat classroom and beyond. He is a wonderful leader who has great expectations for his peers. He has a one-of-a-kind sense of humor, is inquisitive, that means you ask a lot of questions, and thrives to learn as much as possible. Congratulations, Elliot. Keep up the good work.
Thanks very much.
Will will grab a picture of you out in the...
Thanks.
All right.
Come on, Mom. See? It was so
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for letting us interact.
At long last, item number 5,
When do
attorney's
your kids get
comments.
your phone?
Tarn, anything?
Despite the long run up, no, nothing for me.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Item number 6 is a special event liquor license for the Dance Initiative. Anybody here? Okay. Let me get this in front of me.
Good evening, all. My name is Peter Gilbert, and I'm the Executive Director of Dance Initiative. And the event that we are planning to have on February 2nd is, well, I'm sure you all know it's the 30th anniversary of the release of the film Dirty Dancing.
Oh.
So we have the license to screen the film, which we're going to do. And then we've got a couple who are going to teach the people who want to be taught the dances from Dirty Dancing. And then we'll have a party where people can do hopefully what they learned or something else. So it should be a very fun evening. And we will serve beer and wine. We will have a number of volunteers to check people in. We will sell tickets online, so we'll have some idea of how many people will come. Usually it's about a third that book tickets in advance, and then we figure from there. So we've done a couple of events before, so we've got some good experience in handling the crowds that might show up.
All right. So you're familiar with the rules and about having a liquor license, and you mentioned February 2nd. It's going to be at the launch pad. Is that what I understand? From 6 to 10. And where, since you're on air, where would people buy tickets for this event?
We will on our website.
Okay.
They will be available. Danceinitiative.org.
Okay. All right. Kathy, anything from you?
No.
Any questions of Peter?
Sounds like an awesome event.
That sounds fun.
We're going to see you all there. I hope.
Going to the classes.
Thank you. Anything else?
We need to make a motion.
Yep.
Yeah. I would move to approve the liquor license for Dance Initiative for February 2nd at the Launchpad.
I'll second.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Lonnie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. All right. Good luck with the event.
Thank you. See you all there.
Thanks for coming down.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is item number 7, special event calendar. Eric?
Yeah, hi.
Come on down.
Jake Boyles is coming, but he's coming a little bit prior to what's on the agenda, so he's not going to be here.
Sorry,
you guys are way ahead. Jake would kind of acted as our, and Kristen Anderson Garbutt acted as our kind of citizen chairpersons for this task force. The Special Event Task Force was created back in 2016, I think, to kind of have the neighbors of the special events, anybody producing special events, kind of get together and be able to air their grievances if they had any, or come together and kind of figure out a solution, if there were grievances. It also laid us out as far as our town paperwork, really to produce a calendar of events for that coming year and really take a look at what's going to be on our docket as far as staff and public works, street closures, park use events, and facility use events, all on town-owned streets, parks, and facilities. So it really kind of helped us get a little bit ahead of the game also to have that conversation starting in October, November, December, and then to be able to come to you guys and say, we figured it out. Here's 2019 calendar of events that's been vetted through a public process. So the Special Event Task Force will continue to do it because it's working. And I hope you guys feel the same way. We had about 16 members on the task force. We put it out open to the public. Anybody can come to the task force meetings. And we've got great kind of cross reference from our population. Really, there were musicians there. There were people that have a vested interest in special events because part of their business is like the town clown or whatever, So there are people there that were, also interested in providing their services,
Chickens' faces.
Dizzy Lizzy, yeah. But it was great to have them at the events to let them know the process for them to be involved in events too. We also had a good, a contingent of neighbors of these the parks that we put on events. So they're there, kind of as a check and balance, keeping us honest with our special events and our ordinances and our rules for decibel, readings, for time frames when it starts and needs to stop, for cleanup, for all that stuff. So I think we have a good system in place. We had two meetings. The first meeting is really kind of looking at last year's special events and really going through each one with a fine-tooth comb, saying, did this work? Was there any issues? What can we change? Do we need to change venues? Do we need to change timeframes? Did the producer of the event do what they said they were going to do from paper to reality? And so that's a good process, too. We really kind of vetted out some things that do need to change. But luckily, and you can look through the minutes from that meeting, and it's detailed kind of on what we discussed in each one of those events. And we don't obviously need to get into the details of all those, but we did make some recommendations and changes to long-standing traditional events. The second meeting was then really looking at 2019 and laying out a calendar of events, looking at how everything's going to fit together, and also looking at new events. So what we can talk about tonight potentially is kind of some new events that are coming to us and what type of impacts those potentially could have. And those new events are on the calendar that we're asking you to approve tonight. So is that the way you want to do this, kind of talk about the new events and
sure,
just make sure everybody's on the same page?
Yep.
Okay. Some of our new events kind of took the place of existing events, but they're just changing. So one would be our Full Moon Triathlon. That's coming up here January 19th, and so that's kind of taking the place of the Wrestle the Castle, which was a snowshoe and fat bike race that we do in January up in Redstone. So this is going to actually take place out at the Gus Darien Rodeo Arena and on RAFTA Rio Grande Trail. And that'll be an even nighttime event. It'll be organized when the full moon comes up on January 19th. We collaborated with Aloha Mountain Cyclery, Independence Run and Hike, and so it will be a true try. So a 5K run, 5K cross country ski, and a 5K fat bike ride. And the fat bike ride will be the one will create a course around the rodeo arena. And the other two will take place on the Rio Grande Trail. And so we have permits through RAFTA and with the county to cross that road too. So, and a permit with town to use the rodeo grounds. So you'll be seeing that. Actually, you guys won't be seeing that. Our staff will be looking at that just to make sure everything's ready to go for that one. The only other change from a past event is Festival Las Americas for the last couple of years has been conducting their event on the first Friday. They're interested in going back to having that event on Cinco de Mayo. So that will actually fall on Sunday, May 5th this year. So they're interested in going back to a Sunday event. Two other events that are new. Sue Gray with the Carbondale Historical Society is going to be pretty active, I think, in getting the Historical Society in front of people and by conducting some special events. She's interested in conducting the Hattie Thompson birthday party at the Thompson House Museum Park. And that'll be on June 9th from 12 to 3. So that's a new event utilizing the Thompson House Park. So the first event really we're having out at the Thompson House Park. Then there's some event promoters that have been approaching us to conduct some additional concerts and Mexican rodeos out at the Gus Darien Riding Arena. And Mario Tarrin has been doing that over the last couple of years as a local promoter. And he's still interested in conducting a couple of those this summer, but then there's an outside promoter that's also interested in utilizing that space for a Mexican rodeo and concert. So his name's Eduardo Esparza, and so we had a meeting, and I laid out all the paperwork and what they would need to do to have such an event out there. What we want to talk about probably with that facility is just security and how security needs for potential larger events need to be a part of the permitting process. So we talked about that in our first meeting, just how it's not part of the permit itself right now in the language of the permit. And so whereas it is when we rent out the rec center, when we rent out a park, when we rent out a street, that language is in there. They have to prove to us through that paperwork process that they have a volunteer base that will act as and conduct the job of a security company or hire a security company. So that's the language we want to include into our Gus Darien Arena rentals too, since that seems to be becoming more popular, and we have these additional promoters that want to put on some events out there. So that's what we're going to do for 2019 with those permits to use that space. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
One of the things that's important to remember at the rodeo grounds that we do not own the property where the majority of the parking takes place. That's a rental agreement between individual promoters and the property owner or the rodeo committee. So that's kind of a gap as we're looking at doing more events out there over time is that we have parking constraints if they don't reach an agreement with a private neighbor.
What else I wanted to share with this process with you all is that the task force really gives me the ability to, if a new promoter comes into town and says, hey, we want to put on a large event here in town, we want to put on another mountain fair, and I have the ability to then say, all right, well, here's the paperwork process, but it hasn't been vetted through our special event task force yet. And so I get them to, because this has happened, show them the amount of paperwork they would need to do. But we're talking about the next year. We're not talking about this year. And so it gives us the ability to test if somebody's serious about putting on a big special event here. And that has happened, that somebody came in and wanted to do something large like that, and we provided the paperwork, let them know the process, and they didn't realize that they just couldn't have a mountain fair next month, in town. So they disappeared on us. So, but it does allow. It's a little check and balance. It really allows us to take a look at what we can handle too as a town, and what the parks themselves can handle. We have 85 event days on this calendar, and so that's when you do the math, that's a lot of events in this small town. So if somebody does come to me and says, we want to do this event, there's a process that's going to see if they're serious or not. So I just wanted to share that. That's another kind of byproduct of this task force. So if somebody does come to me, it's a smaller event. It's something that is community-based. How I don't just say yes. I actually put that back out to the task force. Say, what do you guys think of this? We need some feedback on this event. So it's not like it can't happen that year, but it does still go through that process of being vetted through the existing task force and get some feedback from them. So it's not just a green stamp, just so you understand how that works. We also added and are going to add to all of our contracts with special event producers a First Amendment activity kind of description and language that has been looked at by legal. So we did talk about that in the task force just to make sure that that information is on the contracts and that the event producers know what they can do and cannot do when somebody's exercising their First Amendment rights. So,
yeah, a lot of that has to deal with the petition issues and the fact that you now need regional or district, congressional district petition signed. So we're really active this past year. So I think we've got some good guidelines on how the rules should work for that or not work.
We also discussed the time frames for special event permits and the liquor permitting process. It can be fairly confusing to somebody, a new event person that's coming in, or the event person that did it last year's not there any longer, and a new event person's on board, even though it's a long-standing event that's happened many years here. Sometimes it's a retraining of the new event staff. And so we really back it out 45 to 60 days when they have to get their paperwork in, so we can really line them up for success, with all the deadlines that exist, especially if they're doing a liquor license and all the time frames that they have to abide by on that. So we wrapped up the meeting with just the calendar that you have in your packet. It's just a chronological calendar that shows you where the event is, the organizer, contact for that organizer, the date of that event, the times of that event, and the location. And so it's about 4 pages worth of special events that we're putting on town-owned land, parks, and amenities. And so if you have any questions about any of this, I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we recommend that you move to approve the 2019 special events and street closure calendar.
Thank you, Eric.
Sure.
Questions, comments?
A quick comment.
Okay.
On the summer music concerts, partially as a result of input from the neighbors, it had been 3 to 7. We had moved it to 4 to 8. They wanted to move back a little bit, so kind of split the difference. It'll be 3:30 to 7:30 roughly. And if it runs a little long to 8 o'clock, they were okay with that. So that was the only thing.
Awesome. Eric, I have just a couple of quick comments. One, I thought the debrief that the task force did and always does is great. You know, I really appreciate really thinking about what works, what didn't, and how do we change it. So I appreciate that. And secondly, just, you know, I think the more I think about the town and what makes it so great, I keep coming back to all the events we host and how they're designed for the local community, and it really creates an opportunity for them to connect. So I think I'm gaining even more appreciation for the Recreation Department and what you guys do and putting all these events together. And what the task force does is just the icing on the cake. So, you know, it was kind of a warm and fuzzy moment of just what a great thing these events are and how important the rec department is in pulling them off. So thanks for all the work that goes into this, because I think it really is an important component of our community. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, this was the easy part, yeah. So
yeah.
It also speaks that this process has worked really well. I mean, years back, this would have been one of your most contentious meetings of the year, full of neighbors and hard feelings and requests to scale back special events. And I think by bringing neighbors and promoters together and working through issues on the kind of a grassroots level before it even gets in front of you has been really productive. And we see it in the number of complaints which have dropped during events. The town police department is, on top of taking decibel readings and responding immediately to complaints, and it's a real give and take with neighbors throughout stuff. But I mean, we used to have events where the mayor's voicemail at night would be filled with bodily harm threats, literally. Just some crazy stuff, and it's really gotten to a nice spot by going through this process and the community members getting together to make it all work.
My only question is, and I haven't applied for, I think I applied for a liquor license years ago, but is the process that you talk about, is that pretty clearly articulated on the website so all of us can just direct people to the website, or do they need to contact you? Or
yeah, I mean, how that kind of works, I do the paperwork on the street or park rental permitting process, and then Kathy does the liquor permitting process, and then that comes together for approval to you guys. So we make sure that those two pieces are matching up, before it hits your packet. And so the hardest part is that to get that done, I mean, hopefully I have that initial paperwork, 45 to 60 days in advance. You need it by 30 days in advance at least. So when all that meshes, then it's pretty simple. And the guys that have done this before, know that, and I remind them a lot too, because it makes my job easier.
Sure. I guess my question is for those that haven't done it before, can they just go online and understand the process before they pester you with questions? Does the website help answer all those questions?
Yeah, I think on the liquor permitting side it does. I think we could probably do a better job on the street rental or park rental permitting side. It's out there, but it's a big document,
Yeah.
And so maybe a little cheat sheet. I've been thinking about that too, is a little checkbox cheat sheet to kind of, even a diagram, kind of show them if your event wants this, kind of really let them, maybe a flow chart that I've been thinking about how to simplify that process, because if somebody walks into it for the first time, it's pretty daunting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be great. Other questions? Heather?
So the only one I guess I was curious about is how robust of a conversation around the running of the balls, and is that going to look the same? I mean, I read like the little snippet that was more about barriers and stuff like that, and I was just curious if there was more to that debrief. If
the how that lined up with the calendar is the just find it, because there was two things going on that day in September. It's the first Friday into September. Wilderness Workshop wants to do their member appreciation party also that night in Sopris Park, and so there was a conversation about those two organizations talking to each other and potentially switching sites, and so the running of the balls could potentially happen over on, Went or in Sopris Park, or, and then the membership appreciation party could happen in 4th Street Plaza Park. That's just an idea that was thrown out. I can talk to the organizers of both groups about that. And then as far as the details on the running of the balls, our little snippet was kind of all we got into, which was, let me find it here.
Because I didn't really understand. It just said no air blowers or dust mitigation needed. So like they're changing how that whole thing is gonna.
Yeah, and they were gonna also tighten up the time frame. Right. I think of the events. Let me find it here.
Yes. One of the things that we do internally is when that permit comes in, we sit at our staff meeting and give feedback like this is what worked and didn't work last year. And what you're getting at is a topic of concern on the staff level.
So you really just talked about timing for now, but you'll get into that a little bit more.
For the actual operation of the event. So that's an example. The other one, which, and we kind of debrief after the events too, the helicopter blowover, blowing barricades in the air and stuff, that it was fine to fly over but not to blow by. So that's been KO'd at the staff level for future aerial displays too. So, we kind of debrief both PD and town staff all together. And we sit down and go, okay, this is what we need to tweak a little bit year to year. And the balls one with the backpack blowers did not go over well with a lot of folks. So we're trying to figure out how to make that work better. Cool. Don't know what the answer to that is. Is it a different washing of the street? You can't sweep up the fines, but we're going to try to find a little better way to do that this year.
That's it.
Yeah, and I think Jay is right. We definitely talked about it here in these meetings with the task force, and then the devil in the details will be in their permit to actually hold the event for next year. So we'll have a lot more detail how that's going to work.
Okay.
For a first year event, they were very happy with it. It was very successful. They do want to change some things also. So the second year event will be different, much tighter time frame. We kept it to what they had mapped out on their permit versus just okay, that one's over, let's start the next thing. So there was a little bit of time that can be switched there, and also the petitions didn't allow for cross main traffic for pedestrians, and they would fix that too. There'd be certain crosswalks and stuff. So
cool.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions? There's a recommended motion on page 84, excuse me.
Well, then with that, I'll move to approve the 2019 special events and street closures as recommended by the Special Events Task Force and Street Closures Committee.
Second.
All right. Motion by Lonnie, seconded by Marty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. All right. Thanks, Eric.
All right, thank you. And I want to publicly thank Jake Boyle and Kristen Garwood, and all the other task force members. for willing to spend some of their time and for a couple meetings and to really hash this stuff out. And they're vested in it, so it's great.
All right.
Thank you.
And when Jake shows up, just, I don't know.
I'll tell him
Say
we
good
moved it to
job.
the end of the meeting.
Yeah, tell him we've been pushed back to. He's got to wait. I'll
Right.
take him out, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
So are we expecting anybody from the marketplace to be here? No. Okay. So, next item is, I don't know what the official title is. Item number 8 is a partial release of letter of credit for the Carbondale Marketplace. Janet?
That's me. Okay. As you all know, Carbondale Marketplace was approved some years back. And what the subdivision did was split the 24-acre parcel into 5 lots. And Lot 1 is the Main Street Marketplace mixed-use development, which you saw recently. Lot 2 is the City Market grocery store. 3 is the fueling station. 4 is the 10,000 square foot retail center. And then 5 is the one that was split a little bit after the original subdivision plat for the bank and one piece reserved for future development. And so what you saw was early last spring, continuing into last fall, and even I saw him going a few weeks ago. The contractor working for Crystal River Marketplace has been installing the infrastructure associated with the public improvements, the utilities, doing ditch work, putting in some of the street layout. And so when the town approved this subdivision improvement agreement, we had 2 letters of credit associated with this SIA. One was for on-site improvements, and that's the one that City Market has for the grocery store. And the other one was for what we call the off-site improvements. And that's for pretty much everything, associated with the streets with Lot 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so the one that was done, the off-site improvements was done by Crystal River Marketplace, and that was about $1.7 million. And the SIA allows that the applicant, Crystal River Marketplace, to request a partial reduction in the letter of credit. And so we received a letter of credit reduction from Sopris Engineering to reduce it by $680,000. And that would leave $1.1 million for the remaining improvements. Kevin Shoresman, the Public Works Director, reviewed the application or the request from Sopris Engineering, and he said it appears that all the work's been completed that they reported and recommended approval of the reduction. So that's one part of this. And the other part is the SIA allows up to 6 partial reductions. And the SIA further says that if authorized by the Board of Trustees, that the board can authorize staff to approve the reductions administratively as time goes on, as they do additional work. And then that the board would be required to do the final reduction, the very last part, before we accept all the improvements. So we wanted to throw that out there for you, and wouldn't mind if you weighed in on that. So 2 things: we recommend the partial reduction of the letter of credit, and then would like to get your feedback on doing it administratively until the last reduction. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thoughts? Questions? Does everybody understand the letter of I'm drawing a blank.
Credit.
Credit. Thank you. You want to say letter of agreement because that's in my the concept and okay.
No, and it's basically to make sure that they do the public improvements that they said they were going to do, right? And so that if they pull out, then we have the money to do those improvements.
Yep.
Right.
Different than bonding. But okay.
And what we do is certified to make sure that they really did. We have inspectors that go out there, take a look at it, the utilities department, on a day-by-day basis, verifying that they're really doing the work out there. Can I add one more thing?
You may.
Because on each of these items, I did talk to the building department to give you an update on building permit for City Market. It's not totally on this topic, but it's just FYI. The building permit's basically ready to be issued, but the architect indicated they'll be submitting a revised plan, just interior spaces, the floor plans. The exterior of the building would remain the same, so it's a fairly minor revision. So that building permit's pretty much wrapped up with a few minor changes. So,
okay, thank you.
FYI.
Heather.
I have no issue with the release of letter of credit, but I have a question on your second, what you wanted feedback on the second half. So do you have a rough idea of how many times, I mean, there's a different scale, certainly, between the bank lot and then, $2 million letter of credit on the offsite. Do you have any sense of kind of how many times they look to kind of come back for partial release? And then I guess the second question is, did this process, where they had to submit to you and then you're kind of coming to us, was it a significant, period of time or delay for them?
I would say, I'm going to address your second question first. No, it wasn't delay. We turned this around pretty quickly, and to be honest, once we get this memo established, what you're going to see is kind of the same memo except reduction number 2, reduction number 3. So now that we've established a process, it should be fairly streamlined. As far as number of times,
I think
guessing,
the 6, which was in the agreement, was at the upper end. I think we're probably looking at.
It did have a number.
They could do up to 6 partials for the Marketplace subdivision. My guess is we'll be in that 3 to 4 range, probably instead, based on the timing. They kind of held off and kind of closed out the fall, early winter season before the request went in. I think the important thing is to look at the scale of what's already in the ground out there between these 2 requests is pretty significant investment on infrastructure. But I think it's more of, it's not a big deal for us to turn around on the agenda. It's more of an issue of whether you feel the need to see each one. And I don't think the staff has a strong feeling either way. We wrote into the agreement that it could be either way. Some developments, boards have wanted to be fairly intimate with the scale and the speed and what's going in the ground for various reasons. Often those were more tied to annexation agreements. So that's why we kind of wrote either or into the development improvements agreement on this.
Yeah, so, my 2 cents would be, I think, and I could easily be outvoted or whatever. I wouldn't fall on my sword, but I wouldn't mind seeing it. I could see it on the consent agenda, but I think it keeps a really sharp pencil on the client side, So if there's no delay, I think I'd still rather see the partial releases, especially on that bigger infrastructure piece. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Other thoughts on that? On either of those 2 requests?
I'm fine with this one, and I'm fine either way on that one. I'm fine letting it be done administratively, but I think if there's any interest in bringing it back to the board, we might as well bring it back to the board.
I also support that. I like the idea of it coming back to the board. Any other feedback you need before we weigh in, Janet? I don't remember anything in particular.
and then it's okay putting it on the consent agenda.
I'm okay with the consent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be fine.
Just to kind of get a system going, so that way we don't go back and say, is that what they said? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you can always pull it off if there's questions.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have a recommended motion on page 97.
I would move to approve the partial release of $680,760.58 of the letter of credit for the offsite improvements related to the Carbondale Marketplace project.
Second.
Motion by Ben, seconded by Heather. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right. Nice job, Janet.
Could I ask one quick follow-up question, just since you gave us sort of a project update, and, you know, people love to ask us about when City Market is going to be built. So building permit, you're saying some minor adjustments on interior, and then they plan to pull that permit within months and start building this year, or we don't know?
What have you
Been
heard?
told by Kroger's real estate folks in Denver that the goal would be to come out of the ground sometime this spring. I believe the majority of the stuff has been bid on already through their process. But till the permit's pulled and the fees are paid, that's the trigger point for tap fees and another rather large payment to the town to get it going.
Okay.
But that's the schedule they've told us at this point. And, you know, about a year construction, because it takes 8 or 9 months to build a building and 4 months to stock it. Actually, it's almost a third of the time to put the stuff on the floor of a store. So you'll see a building which looks almost complete, but interior work for 3 or 4 months to get it ready. So there won't be folks lining up to shop in 2019 at the new facility.
Okay.
There will not be.
Will not.
It'll be 2020. Yeah.
It'll be 2020 at some point.
But it's good to see it legitimately moving forward. I mean, I think when we see progress like this, it feels much more tangible than
There's significant
promises.
infrastructure
Yeah.
investments at this point.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
All right. Moving on to item number 9, partial release of letter of credit for Lot 5B, First Bank.
Okay.
Janet?
Kind of hate to bore you, but this is pretty similar. They came together. But as I mentioned, the bank's going up on Lot 5B of the northern lot. And so what happened is Crystal River Marketplace LLC hired the contractor doing the bulk of the work to do the First Bank infrastructure work. And so that's been moving along really pretty quickly based on the reduction. It's almost by half. And as far as the building permit situation, First Bank, they did submit a building permit, and the building official reviewed the application, and a correction letter was sent to the architect, and they've come back and addressed all the issues, and so we figure that building permit will be issued in probably about 2 weeks, or ready to be issued. Whether or not they come in and pick it up is a different question, because once they do, then they're paying the fees. So, but on our side of it, it's moving along pretty quickly.
Okay.
So as far as the SIA and the letter of credit reduction, we recommend that the letter of credit be reduced by $107,000, and that would leave about a balance of $140,000. And we recommend approval of that reduction.
Questions on this one? There's a recommended motion on page 102.
I can do that too. Move to approve the partial release of $107,249.18 of the letter of credit for the public improvements related to the Carbondale Marketplace Lot 5B project.
Second.
Motion by Ben, seconded by Lonnie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Okay. Thanks, Janet.
Sure.
You guys good if we just keep going until the executive session, take a break? All right. Item number 10, ordinance number 2, series of 2019, development of improvement agreement with the Sopris Lodge. Terry, would you like to join us at the table? At long last, huh?
I believe it's been almost a year since we were here last. Time flies.
All right. Janet, you want to kick it off?
I'll start this one off. This is actually John Laybourne's project,
Okay.
but I figure we'll do a tag team here. I worked some with the agreements. He knows the details of the project, and of course there's Terry and Abdi. Hi. Other members of the team as well. So yeah, basically the board approved an amendment to the comprehensive plan for this property in February of 2018. You also approved a rezoning to rezone it from a PUD and RMD to the RHD zone district. And at the same time as the rezoning, you also approved a major site plan review to allow a 78-unit assisted living facility to be constructed on the parcels. And it has taken a while, to get to this process. There's a lot of moving parts to the application. And, the applicants have kept working through it, particularly working with RAFTA to get the licenses put together. And so we got to the point where we could bring the development improvement agreement before you. And basically, I want to hit on a couple of things. The ordinance of approval, this calls out the water or fees in lieu of water rights on page 4, paragraph 6, page 110 of your packet. And I want to note that the fee of the $94,545 may be reduced somewhat. We did some refining of numbers, so that might be reduced somewhat. So we would like to keep the latitude of reducing that. And then also what Mark Hamilton would like to do is call out the number of EQRs that represents, as well as the unit going rate for each EQR, which is $2,050. So it's tweaking the number a little bit.
So just to be clear, when it's time to make a motion,
Yeah.
so you want flexibility on the way an EQR is calculated, the number of EQRs?
The dollar price.
The
to
cost
have it
per
go down probably to the 80,000 something.
That's the water rights dedication, not in terms, and the issue on that is, this is a rather complicated project to actually assign water use to because of the makeup of the units versus commercial kitchens to the individual units to kitchenettes. So when we had figured out the water rights dedication fees, we had included the commercial kitchen and the residential units per the spots in the rooms, and our water engineer, Scott Pfeiffer, looked and said, you know what, I think you guys are double counting that. And we said, well, that certainly wasn't the intent. Why don't you give us your methodology? So that's the reason it might drop. It wasn't anything to do with the applicant saying, hey, change this. It was taking a step back because it's a very, to assign water use to this type of facility is not an easy one to do. So we wanted to do a separate set of eyes on it from our water engineer. Usually when you send something to the water engineer, it goes up. In this case, it went down, or we assume it'll go down.
So there's the dollar value of the water rights fee in lieu, but then there was something about the EQRs too.
Basically saying how many EQRs we've calculated that this project will use.
Okay, number of EQRs.
Yeah,
okay.
so
okay.
The unit rate of the water rights, the EQR stays the same, 2,000 some odd. So just the number of EQRs this project will use and the price.
Okay. All right, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. No, I'm glad you asked for clarification. So otherwise, the ordinance is in good shape, and recommending approval of that. And there's only one really minor change on the development improvement agreement, and it's on page 3, paragraph 4, which is changing the plan set date from November to December. It's on page 116 of your packet. It's just changing that. But otherwise, they're in good shape, and we recommend approval of both documents so they can move forward to the next step. And I want to mention a couple of the next steps. They do have the building permit application in, and it's under review. And the building official said that a correction letter will be sent probably in the next couple of weeks toward the end of January for the applicants to take a look at and respond to. So that building permit's in progress. And I do want to note that if the ordinance and the development improvement agreement are approved, there's a couple of threshold issues which the applicant will need to address before moving on to building. And one of those is getting the final signed licenses from RAFTA for the access and the utility crossings. and also submitting a letter of credit for the town's review and approval for security, just the, security for the public improvements. And with that, I recommend approval of the 2 documents.
Okay, any questions of Janet? Ben?
Just with the Second Street improvements, that was a big part of our conversation last time, and the only reference I see to it here is in the P&Z minutes a little bit from Kevin, kind of talking about that. So is the applicant responsible for any payment for any of that, or because it's off-site, is that all the town, even though it's sort of initiated by this? And at what point will we look into the details of that? Because last time Kevin presented a very rough sketch, I think, of sort of we think it might look something like this, but
yeah,
not a final plan.
The applicant's responsible for the costs of improvements to Second Street. We have John back here too, because they had to design the sidewalk, and they worked with Kevin on that. So they're responsible for the improvements because the access needs to be improved so that they can use it.
So where's that plan?
That is part of the engineering plan. So what we have in our plan set is a whole set of engineering documents. And like it references sheets C25 and C26, and that discusses the landscape plan and profile.
Okay.
So,
but we talked about keeping the street narrow versus going wider with it. We talked about the alignment of the sidewalk and the configuration of that parking. We talked about a lot of details that, are we going to see that again, or is approval tonight approval of something that we don't get to look
you're
at?
approving tonight is the sidewalk would be going in, and the security's included in this, and some very modest improvements where there's some asphalt which gets adjusted slightly, but the concept is to keep the road relatively narrow. There's 1 or 2 spots where it gets a little additional asphalt along the side and the full sidewalk alignment, and that's included in this estimate, in the engineer's estimate.
And so do we have a diagram of that or anything, or
did we include the actual plans in the?
No, we didn't include the engineering plans. John, do you have a?
I don't think but I don't recall us talking about options. I think it was always presented that it would be just the improvements that Jay just mentioned, and the town may choose to make modifications to Second Street down the road, but we didn't envision any, and therefore we wouldn't require the project to do any. So maybe and that's why it's probably not included, because we essentially already approved that plan. Am I speaking?
That's my recollection. Okay. It was mainly the sidewalk, and it was agreed, if my memory's right, not to widen the street too much. The whole idea was to keep the street narrow so the traffic moved more slowly, particularly with the Rafta Trail. So this was all discussed, and then what Kevin does is review the engineering plans to make sure that that's incorporated in the engineer plans. And so that was basically done.
But the sidewalk alignment follows what you guys reviewed earlier and suggested in the connection to the Rio Grande Trail, where it was going to not go immediately next to the road, but it was going to be adjusted slightly. That's
okay. I just remember that as an unfinished discussion. Okay. I remember that as like maybe it'll do this and maybe it'll do that, and we'll come back to it later with some finality. So I expected some review of that, but.
Yeah,
because there was a tree in question as well.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense to me the way that it looked, and so I thought we were going to look at it again. But if it made sense to everybody else and we're good to go, then I'll live with it.
The alignment of the sidewalk, you're right, we may.
Yeah, it diverged from the road quite a bit, and I just thought that we would see sort of a final plan, and that we would have either options.
They've done that plan. We can shoot that back to you, just so you can see where it's at. The security's in place to build the sidewalk and the concrete and the asphalt, and if the board would like to see that alignment, we'll make sure we bring it back to you.
And if we felt there should be any changes to that, is there time to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to be putting, in the type of sidewalk we're building, it's a type of thing where you can do some field engineering and make some modifications if necessary with the layout, because you're not doing matching curb and gutter along there.
Okay. And I'm not trying to blow one sidewalk out of proportion here, but I think it's going to be really critical connection that right now is this weird little dead-end lane, and it's suddenly going to become this major connection to a major development, and I think that we're going to hear about it if we didn't get it right. So I want to make sure that we get it right. Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Terry, you comfortable with everything?
Well, I'm happy to add additional narrative if need be.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time on Second Street with the neighborhoods, with Kevin, with the town. I mean, we walked it numerous times. It's been fully engineered with RAFTA. RAFTA had to come in and bless it. And so from the conceptual stage last February to now, it's come a long way and is fully engineered and ready to go in the best possible alignment. It's been getting blessed by all the neighborhood folks, RAFTA, the town, and us, so we're prepared to build it. I'm not sure there are any other alternative alignments that would work, but you're certainly welcome to look and give us any feedback. Just keep in mind that it was kind of blessed by all these different sanctions. So
Yeah, I'd just like to see it. It's just unusual that we don't see it, that's all.
And we've got full engineering plans.
Great. I'd love to see it.
And you're comfortable with all the requirements in the
Yes.
ordinance in the DIA?
We are.
Okay.
We reviewed them. We've had our attorney review them. We've made some changes.
Great. So we have any other questions? No? This is not a
I
public
would
hearing.
move to approve ordinance number 2, series of 2019, with the water rights dedication amount and the number of EQRs determined by staff, and the development improvements agreement.
And
Work?
the updated date on page 3 of the development improvement agreement?
And the updated date, the development improvement agreement.
Okay. Does that work, Janet?
That works.
Okay. And Tar. Any other questions? Well, motion by Erica, seconded by
Second.
Heather. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. All right. Good luck, Terry and team.
Thanks.
Yep.
We'll get you copies of the design. I should have it in the packet, so.
Okay.
Get that to you.
And what else will we see on this before? So this is approval to start building, or they need to still pull a building permit?
They're working on the building permit,
Okay.
so it wouldn't come back before you.
Okay. Okay.
But
That's
we'll
it.
go
They
back
can
and we'll
start.
get you the plans, because it has been a while.
Yeah.
But we'll make
But-
sure we get that out for you.
Once everything's in place, even before the building permit, we don't do grading permits, so you could see site work starting once the development agreements are secured and the security's in place.
The goal is to start this spring? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that, Jay. You said grading permits can be pulled once the development.
Everything, yeah, been working with Kevin on timing and stuff on that, but once you could see work happening out there prior to, well, there's already been some work to get ahead of the irrigation improvements, but
If everyone knew that, we did do the irrigation ditch last spring before the water was turned on. So.
yeah.
Sure.
So even before the building permit's issued, you could be doing some grading and site work, and there's some drainage work which needs to be done. But once the improvements are secured and the agreements are executed, they'll be able to start that.
The demolition also.
Yep. There's some
So
demo
we would
work.
expect the initial site work to start in February and then actual building permit hopefully in the spring.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank
It's
you.
going to be a busy year in Carbondale.
It is. It
is.
That's why I wanted to tell you, because once everything starts, people are going to be like, what's happening? Because it's been approved so incrementally, but now it's coming all at once. So.
Yep.
It's the truth.
Any thoughts or questions on the minutes, item number 11? Any of the minutes that were provided, planning and zoning?
What about the Wolf Creek storage thing? Are we talking about that?
I didn't see that.
It's on the agenda, but
No, that was taken off the agenda.
Yeah.
oh, all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
because Rocky Mountain Natural Gas didn't get us any of the information on the truck hauling routes. So I have that tentatively scheduled. I did let Pitkin County know that we hadn't heard from them. And so they're going to just keep continuing the Wolf Creek storage thing until they get in touch with us. So you'll get your opportunity January 22nd.
Okay, thanks.
I panicked there for a second.
Printed agenda, that's why I asked.
All right, so let's take a 5-minute break and adjourn. We'll come back for executive session.